Yoga is the umbrella. It's the name that describes all the different sciences and practices that belong to the family of yoga, such as Hatha Yoga, which is posture and practicing exercise and cleansing techniques for the body. Mantra Yoga, which is using the science of sound for changing the frequency and brainwave and improving your mental, emotional health. Bhakti Yoga, which is the science of love and devotion. Karma Yoga, which is the practice of service to the community and to the people around you.
Throughout history, Western civilization has been regularly enriched by Eastern influences. In the latter half of the 20th century, yoga has made a great impact on the West, and it is today an integral part of Western lifestyle. Today there are many yoga retreats around Sydney, which offer a healthy break from the stress and strains of modern city life. Ocean View Yoga and Health Retreat near Gosford is one such place.
I was a dancer before I got into yoga, and then when I finished dancing, I got married, and then after a few years of marriage, I decided it wasn't for me because I didn't want to have children or I didn't want to be a housewife. So I was looking to do something more active, and I found yoga. And after a few years of yoga, I decided I wanted to teach, that this was what I wanted to do for my life. So my husband then decided to build me this centre. This centre is aimed to help people to actually live yoga. So from the morning to the evening, they can actually live yoga. Yoga is an attitude. You don't have to live this way if you don't want to, but at least the centre is here for those people who would like to maybe do more creative things in their life than sitting and watching TV. We try to help people to get back into more natural way of living rather than just do yoga postures, but it is part of the day. It's not the whole day doing yoga postures. Even having a cold shower can be part of yoga because it's very beneficial, because it stimulates the energy in the body and makes you feel good.
I've come up here for a week, and Prem's a yoga teacher, and she started me into yoga, and I started on the first day. She started me on a program, and yoga I found was one of the most relaxing sports I've ever done, or most relaxing sports, I suppose you could call it. And it stretches the body, and afterwards when one is in meditation, it's extremely, you get time to think about where you are and where you're going. Yoga also is it centers your spirit.
Well, about 6 years ago I started Hatha Yoga, which is yoga postures, and that was okay for 6 years. It helped me relieve my tensions, make my body supple. And I became aware of this place through doing workshops, and because I didn't have much money to play with, I come up here to do work in exchange of staying weekends. That was fine for a while, and I just got interested in this place so much that I just came up here just to do work only. And I realised I was a karma yogi.
Most people, when they come here, they're absolutely exhausted. They come from the city and they're just looking for somewhere to just totally let go and be quiet and be by themselves. And I get all different types of people, not necessarily into yoga, just people who are looking for somewhere quiet and a little less conventional. We don't cook meat here. We are strictly vegetarian. A lot of people do come here and they eat meat, and they don't usually mind. They like to go through the change, and they like to see if they can live without eating the meat. So
For many Western devotees of yoga, a visit to India, the home of yoga, has helped to give meaning to their practice.
What made a difference to me actually was to go to India. I was practicing yoga, enjoying it. I was going to the ashram, participating in the activities there. And there was a course on in India that's Kriya Yoga training, which is only available in a couple of places in the world. And I went to India to study that. And once I arrived in India, I felt so much at home I actually didn't want to leave. That was in 1976, and I went back to live there in 1977 and took sannyas and committed my life to yoga and to imparting yoga. And
Yoga is really, it's very beautiful in its movements, and the meaning behind it is even more interesting. And what's important about my music is that one has to feel good within the body and the soul. And I felt that yoga physically stretched me and made me feel good physically, and therefore I was able to play my flute with a lot more soul and a lot more intensity and essence.
I just finished about 2 years ago a successful career in bicycle riding, and I stopped riding and got fat like everybody else and felt really physically down and tired, and so somebody suggested, why don't you do yoga? And now being 41 years old, I thought I give it a go, and I started virtually 2 to 3 times a week, and I lost weight and I felt physically much better, and I started riding bicycle again and entered a few races what I successfully finished, and then I decided to go to Europe, and I came in one of the world championships. I received the 2nd place. I'm more interested in postures and stretching, and I don't have the greatest voice, so I rather to be in stretching postures, interested what benefits my health and my sporting ability. When it comes to the finish line, when you can say so, where everybody's exhausted to a degree, they can't get any faster, I just concentrate on breathing and let the body do the work, and I usually be faster than all the others.
I think religion, I wouldn't even know how to describe it, but it's to do with our concept of God, or however we see creation is. And sure, yoga is to do with that also, as far as I'm concerned, but bottom line for me, yoga is about getting into balance. So being a bit more physical about it, balancing the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain, balancing the external life and the internal life, balancing extroversion, introversion, male side, female side, you know, all that sort of thing.
In a realistic way, no, yoga is not a religion. However, nearly every religion incorporates one or more of the practices of yoga into its philosophy. For example, in Christianity, we have the practice of prayer, we have the practice of singing hymns, and even in chanting the Latin mantras, Kyrie eleison and various other Latin mantras, such as in the Gregorian chants. And they're all very practices closely aligned with the techniques in yoga. For example, Kyrie eleison is a mantra, and they're repeating mantra over and over again, except in Christianity they do it with very beautiful harmonies. The candle is a very strong symbol in Christianity, and in yoga we have the candle for practicing concentration. It's called tratak, in which you stare at a candle and you use it for focusing your prayers. Even the symbology is very similar. Yoga, as we know today, comes from India, and the symbol for the heart chakra is two triangles that are inverted one over the other, and in Christianity that same symbol is called the Star of David. So there's very many similarities, but you see, yoga is not a religion, it's a science, and religions practice the science of yoga to improve their own understanding of their spiritual philosophy. Yoga is a form of exercise. It helps to keep you supple. It helps to eliminate backache and headaches. You can deal with all kinds of physical ailments like diabetes and asthma. You can lower and raise the blood pressure very easily through the practices of yoga. But of course it's much more than just physical exercise. If you want to practice just for your physical health, then you practice Hatha yoga. If you want to practice yoga to improve your concentration, to develop psychic powers, or to improve your understanding of yourself, then you practice the other practices of yoga, such as bhakti, karma yoga.
I practice one practice every day, which I also teach in my workshops, which has actually got everything in it. It's salute to the sun, and all the movements backwards and forwards are there. It removes toxins from the body, it stimulates digestion, and it's a all-rounder for people who live in the city. Well, it's an all-rounder for everybody, but for people who live in the city, it's just great.
I like to practice yoga for at least an hour every morning, and meditate also for at least half an hour, maybe an hour. And then I take the feeling that I have from attuning to my finest qualities within myself into my everyday being. And that may be through just, even if it's just doing simply housework, or whether I'm actually helping people with massage or dealing with people on a group basis. I've been trained in remedial massage, and when I was in England I started practicing that on a one-to-one basis with people. What I like to do is to encourage people to take the responsibility for healing themselves, so that I will help them in the process by hands-on. In some ways it is still a form of yoga, because yoga means the union of everything. And it is like, yoga is like an umbrella term for everything as it is. And I find that even though it may not be used in the classical sense of yoga, in the Hindu sense, I still find that it is working very empathetically with the yoga systems as they are now.
When I was 12 years old, my brother and my mother went off to a yoga class, and we had no idea at that stage what an impact that would make on our family. So I've been doing yoga since I was 12 years old. I incorporate yoga into my lifestyle in many ways. Usually, but not every morning, I get up and do about half an hour's practice, half an hour sadhana, which incorporates yoga postures, breathing and meditation techniques. But the biggest way that I incorporate yoga into my life is by, when I'm in situations, or especially when I come across difficulties, I try and centre myself and to use that to approach difficulties from a different angle. I consider yoga as a spiritual path, not as a religion. I was initially brought up as a Catholic and went to a Catholic school, and I found it very easy to incorporate the two. I found that yoga gave me a lot more freedom and that there wasn't any one God or one path that I had to follow, but I could encompass all aspects of my life. The type of yoga, or the form of yoga that I find that comes really natural to me is the bhakti yoga, especially the kirtan aspect. I've been involved in chanting and kirtan for many years, and I find that this gives me great energy, very devotional.
It's not really part of bhakti yoga. It seems that way, but it is just a sound vibration. Sanskrit was never used for talking, it was used just for singing. And when you chant a mantra, it takes over the thought patterns, because we are always thinking and thinking and thinking, like the waves in the sea. The mind gets exhausted. So the mantra or the chanting, it stops the mind from thinking for a while, so you can rejuvenate. I particularly do in my school, because my path seems to be music. I think when God has given you a gift, then you should use it and you should pass it on to other people. And my gift seems to be dancing and music. So I'm trying to keep it simple for people, because people go to universities and they study music and they think it's very hard. But here we do it simple, very simple way, so that everybody can learn.
Because it originally came from India, as we know today, and also because it came with the tradition of gurus. And gurus, if we take this word away, they're teachers. And they're teachers who have become perfected or have learnt the art of yoga. If we go to a university and we want to study science, we don't go to a layman in the street who has heard of the word science but doesn't understand what it means. You go to a professional, a man who has not only studied it, but has also become an authority on the subject. And so a guru is an authority on the subject. But I think today there are so many people in Australia and America and other countries in the world that have lived and studied with gurus, that now they're teaching in their own right, with their own experience and their own knowledge. So yoga is beginning to move away from that umbrella of guru and religion and the whole Hindi and Indian philosophy, and is becoming much more westernized.
I find that Westerners have a completely different attitude to yoga to Indians. In India, it's considered as part of the daily ritual, and that's actually how I believe yoga is meant to be practiced. A little bit every day. You know, like you eat every day, so you practice a bit of yoga every day to sort of balance yourself, your mind and body. Whereas in the West, what I find is people don't come to class every week, they don't come to class every day, they come when they feel like it. So it's more like rescue remedy or emergency situation, or come and get a blast and then go away. And there are people also who practice regularly. But Indians, for me, are more ritualistic about it. And in the West, we're more like take it when we want to.
Raja Yoga is a form of yoga which may not be that obvious to a Western eye. There are over 25 Raja Yoga centres around Australia, with its Australian headquarters in Sydney's Ashfield.
Actually, because in the Western world, I think almost all people, especially from television, have the image of people doing the physical exercises. But Raja Yoga is actually a mental process, and it's a form of meditation. And in fact, if someone was to come along to one of our centres, we would explain that there's all different types of yogas. and there's the beginning type, which is the physical exercises. But we feel that you don't have to work through all those different types of yogas. In fact, you can start directly with meditation. And ultimately, it's just really beginning to develop an awareness of who I am and an intellectual link with God. And very often, I think people throughout the world regard Raja Yoga as the original form of meditation. About 25 centres, and I have been involved since its inception, which is about 1975. And in that time, it's grown incredibly. In the early 70s, meditation was something which was alternative. You know, only sort of the fringe people of society would do it. But now we find all sorts of people are interested in meditation, mainly because of the publicity from the medical fraternity. Like, I've taught meditation in jails, I've taught it to politicians, I've taught it to priests and nuns, I've taught it to business people. All types of people in the community now are interested in meditation. So I think that it's transgressed that barrier of being alternative, and people see it as a very important thing for peace and relaxation.
Over 3 years ago, and I was suffering from what they call the classical burnout. I'm a merchant banker, and I was working incredibly long hours, basically 7 days a week until midnight or even into the wee hours of the morning. And I came to a stage in my life where I both physically and mentally exhausted, to the stage where I could not even go to work. Basically then it was a turning point in my life, and I realized that I had to do something about it. I started to change my diet and do a lot of exercises, but I found that that wasn't really enough. And I found that even outwardly, I seemed to be an altogether person. Inside, I was still very much in turmoil. And I found that my mind was racing away. I couldn't relax. I was very stressed out. And I knew that I had to do something to actually calm myself down and bring down my stress level. I mean, to the point I was so stressed out that at the age of 29 I had a heart attack. So I really had to have a very good look at my life. A friend of mine suggested, among other things, to actually do a meditation course, and she suggested Raja Yoga. So I went along for the course. It's 5 lessons, an hour each, and I found that it really agreed with me, because not only could I do it, say, in the evening, or in the morning, but I could actually encompass it in any moment of my time at work, which is where I needed really to be the most peaceful and to actually have things under control.
What we find is that someone will come literally because they're extremely tense, they want to relax a little bit. That would be the most common thing. Other people will come because they have a smoking habit, they have a drinking habit, they have some sort of addiction. They will want to give that up. I would say that the people who really gain the most from it are people who tend to want to change their view of life. They feel that the world as they see it is not really conducive to happiness, or they feel a totally materialistic lifestyle is not really what they want. So they're looking for a different way of understanding themselves and the world.
This one is the ever-present guide. I can keep this one with me all the time. And when this one is occupying my mind, then no negative thought can come in. But I become strong in my own self.
I didn't have any expectations, but I realised after I'd done the course, the benefits derived from meditation in the way of having a more ordered mind, being able to have more self-esteem, confidence.
When I looked back on it, actually, I was thinking about it only a few weeks ago, why I am not working the hours that I did before, and yet I find that I have more on my plate than I had before. And the only answer I can give to that, justifiably, is that I find I have more clarity of thought. And before I used to procrastinate a lot and perhaps take a while to decide about a particular problem or the way that I wanted to go with a certain meeting or client and so forth. And I find that my thoughts now are much more concentrated. There's more clarity in the mind. And instead of concentrating at the problem at hand, is basically to look more at the solution.
We have really 3 basic stages in meditation. And someone would come along to the centre, and maybe for half an hour, an instructor will explain on the first day a concept of the self. Now, this isn't a meditation where we'll repeat a mantra or we'll concentrate on something, a mandala on the wall or whatever, but it's actually going into an understanding of who I am. And so we try to give a very clear difference between the perception of the self being a spiritual being or a soul or a spirit or atma, whatever word, as distinct from the physical body, as the first stage of meditation. And then the second stage, we explain how to link the mind with the Supreme Soul, and how through the power of thought I can link my own mind with the Supreme Being. And this is really how I get the strength to control my own thoughts and also my own habits and therefore my actions, and really change one's life. Now, I've said that absolutely in essence, but over 3 or 4 lessons we'll go into the detail of all those aspects of meditation. You don't need to wear any special clothes or whatever. A lot of the people who do come to certain classes have been to study at our international headquarters in India. Now, when they go there, often just for comfort, because of climate, they wear just simple, loose cotton clothes like I'm wearing, but it's definitely not a prerequisite at all. I mean, we see the whole importance of this meditation as an internal transformation.
As part of the centres, it's a bit like a uniform, in the same way that a teacher might have a uniform, or a policeman might have a uniform, or a doctor might have a uniform, and that helps, in a sense, create a certain atmosphere for, teaching meditation and practicing meditation. For those who live in the centres, yes, it is part of our discipline that we do wear this uniform as such.
And we don't wear these clothes outside the centre. It's just something we put on for teaching purposes and when we're living inside the centre.
Many people are looking at an alternative way of living in a more peaceful and sensible way, that you can only go right away from mainstream society. But people don't want to do that, because in fact they enjoy their careers and they want to put something into the world, they want to put something into society. So what we encourage people to do is to take their meditation into their business or into whatever career they have.
I work in the computer software house, and my job is marketing, and I do that on a part-time basis.
I work as a secretary. I'm actually from the Gold Coast visiting Sydney, but it's like a semi-vacation, but I work as a secretary.
So has yoga become a yuppie trend now?
Quite call it a yuppie trend. I think really that there are certain levels, yes, where you could almost call it that, but in a sense to meditate is a discipline. It is a real discipline. It's not really fashionable, because it's like anything. If you want to become really fit physically, you know that you have to train over a long period of time. There's effort involved. You have to become quite dedicated. And I would say that's the same when you're approaching meditation.